Welcome back to the shop. I got a new chainsaw again. Only my older brother Nick will understand that joke. Yeah, I bought one of these before. He was doing some tree work. Just clearing a piece of property over there in D-Land next to the shop. And we'd gone through a bunch of the cheesy, cheap saws, and I'd bought one of these Makitas while he was working over there. And then he bought a house, and he needed it. So he's got that Makita. Let him keep that one. I went in and bought another one, because I need to split up some of the bigger logs for my log splitter. And I have the the cordless Makita, the little 18-volt one. It's a great saw, but it's pretty hard on it cutting some of the bigger logs. So I went ahead and bought this one. And it should serve me well. But what I'm going to talk about today is not so much the chainsaw in its operation in cutting wood. I want to talk about the extension cord that goes along with it and try to show you what a little bit that I know about extension cords and amp draw and so on and so forth, what I've learned on the internet. So let me get this unboxed and I'll show you what I'm going to measure. The saw I have is a Makita UC 4051A, 120 volts, 14.5 amps at 60 hertz. The important number that we're going to look at today is the 14.5 amps. Now on the internet there's any number of charts. I chose this one at random, and it gives you a cord gauge versus amperage size. So right here it's nice and easy to distinguish how it is. We've got a chainsaw, extra heavy duty, 50 feet or 100 feet. We're going to need a 12 gauge extension cord. The color of these codes is only indicative of extra heavy duty. That's for this chart alone. The color of the cord has nothing to do with real life. For example, this yellow cord here doesn't have anything to do with 20 amp. This is not a 10 gauge. I'm sorry. This is a 12-3. Now this tool is not grounded. It is a electrically isolated tool, I believe they call it. It can't shock you through the plastic, so it doesn't need the ground plug on it. But I bought a 12 gauge plug, a 12 gauge cord, because it can handle 50 feet at 14.5 amps. Now here's a more specific chart that will give you exactly what the parameters are for all the extension cords, and there's any number of charts out there to find. But right now we can see that I'm going to be, oh, I circled the wrong one, between 14 and 16 amps. Well, we're still at 12 amps at 50 feet. Now if you double the voltage, you cut the amps in half. That's why the chart is 115 to 230. But we can see that I do not want to go over 100 feet unless, if I do, I need a bigger cord. I need a 10 gauge cord, and it gets larger and larger as you go all the way out. And the cords get infinitely more expensive. The price differences are quite drastic between a 12 and a 10. I believe I paid $40 for this one, and a 10 gauge cord would probably be on the order of $70. The cheap ones would be $70. And once you get up into the really big cords, they get very, very expensive. So what I'm going to do today is I'm going to put an amp meter on here, and we're going to test and see how much amps this really draws, if this nameplate is true. Now hopefully you can see that. I'm going to take one of my other cameras and get some time lapse of me cutting logs. But we'll watch the amperage on here and see what it draws. Now I couldn't see what was happening. I've got it set to max right there. Hopefully it holds the max amperage. As for the saw, it is an absolute treat to use this. It is so nice. It is absolutely ripped through these logs. It's not going to be as good as a gas saw, but it's not loud. It's reliable. It's $220. It is really nice. Let me get another log and we'll cut it up. The longer pieces of wood tend not to split very good. Well, I think these shorter pieces will split nicer, but we'll cut up another log and then split some wood. That thing works so good. That's a pretty substantial pile of sawdust from an electric saw, I think. Let's split some logs. Well, that's the main voyage for my new Makita saw. I just love the way this thing runs. I'm not sponsored by Makita. I don't have anything to do with it. I do like Makita. I own some DeWalt. I've got a little bit of everything, but by and large, I've been real happy with Makita. It's a little bit more expensive, but that's my preference. The takeaway from this video is that the bigger the extension cord, the better. Even though we saw the peak amperage at 17.2, almost 0.3 amps, that's not continuous. When you're looking at what size cords you're going to need, I think you're looking, what you're going to want is the average amp load. If it's going to peak, it's just like anything. This has a soft start. Usually when a motor starts up, it's got locked rotor amps, full load amps. It's astronomical amount of infinite resistance or whatever they call it. But for the saw, I think the numbers that we saw here when it's under a normal load, that 14.5 amps is a good number on this. We saw it vacillate between 11 to maybe 15 amps when I was really using the saw. So I think the 12 gauge cord at 50 feet is more than enough to run this saw, and if I was to go any longer, if I needed 100 feet, I would definitely want to go up to a 10 gauge extension cord. But that's it. I hope this was informative to somebody out there, and I hope you're having a good week. Thanks for watching.